Hey buddy, afternoon. It's a little after 1:30. I think it is. I didn't bring my iPod or anything, so check. It's 1:42 actually, Pacific time. And I want to talk about this so-called CAS Act. CSA or CAS, Copyright Act system. And you know what's funny, folks, is that no matter how many times it's been done, people are still going to torrent no matter what. And here's what's funny about that. I was reading an article online about a month ago, and it basically stated that yes, the CAS Act, the Copyright Act system, or whatever you want to call it, Copyright Act system, or whatever you want to call it, is indeed a system that, can cause trouble for you. But here's the thing. The CAS Act, or the Copyright Act, if you will, only targets, it seems its primary targets are torrents and stuff that involve music and movies. Not once did you see one of them saying something about wrestling, UFC, none of that. And people, and when I people go, hold on for a second. And when I read this article, and I'm sure other people have read it too, when I read this article, it basically states that because of the fact of this is something that's trying to reach millions of homes, to prevent any copyrights, to prevent any piracy and stuff like that, that people like myself and like you, we could be targeted. We have to watch ourselves. But the thing is, with us, it's less. Basically, it's like because of the fact this is trying to be reached by the millions, if you know what I mean, that people like myself and you guys watching, if let's say we torrent or download, torrent, whatever, one item, and let's say it's a sporting event, that we are less to be penalized than anybody else. Not saying we won't be, but because they are trying to target a lot of people. They're trying to target all these individuals and prevent piracy and everything. That yes, it is an act that is not in the favor of a lot of people that people are not in favor of, period. They're not in favor of it. But it's also an act that, in a sense, is backfiring. Because for so many people that you try to stop and warn, there's always one or two or five more that continuously do it. And it's going to backfire, and I think they have to realize that. In fact, I would not be surprised, and this is the honest to God truth, I would not be surprised if a lot of these companies that have agreed to do this act are saying, you know what, look, we understand we understand the diaphragm, we understand the reason, the map behind basically they understand why this is happening. But but they understand they understand the diagram of this whole situation, but they also understand that no matter how many they try to stop, more are going to continuously do it. So my honest to God opinion is, I don't think there's going to be many at these companies associated with this act that are going to be so much in a rush to say, hey, look, you're doing this, you're not supposed to be doing it. They're not going to be in a rush. Basically, I think companies like Comcast, Xfinity, if you will, Time Warner, Cablevision, and a few others, I think the reason they agreed is to shut the MPAA and the RIAA up. They're basically saying, okay, fine. You want us to do this? We'll do it. But please, shut the hell up afterwards. And I'm sure they're probably thinking to themselves, you know what, we've agreed to this act, but you know what? It's the only way we could shut these people up because they're so worried. It's like Sean McLean, Zero Nizarak, said one time. He basically said that because of the fact that a majority of the head honchos in Hollywood, in the movie and music business, are so behind on the times, and are not, well, he didn't really say this, but he basically said to the point that these people do not want to evolve. They don't want to move with the times. I mean, come on. You have Walmart, which is over there. You have a Walmart like that one over there. You have Netflix, you had Redbox, you have, Hulu, you have Amazon Prime, you name it. You have all these companies, you have all these video services, even Blockbuster, whether you can rent DVDs or not. And you think, even iTunes, and you think honestly people don't look at that as an advantage? Of course they do. But again, this is why, yes, the CAS Act, the Copyright Act, the CAS Act or CSA Act, whatever you want to call it, is going, will work, but it will also backfire. That's the whole thing. It will backfire. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you think I, along with anybody else, am the only one that torrented and downloaded, did a torrent file of WWE Extreme Rules after it was over so we could have it, so we wouldn't have to pay for it? Do you think we didn't? You think me and everybody else think I'm the only one that did that? No, there was a bunch of people that did that. There was a bunch of people that did that. There was a lot of people that did that. And here's the truth. They did it because pretty much they know that this whole Copyright Act, if you will, act system, whatever you want to call it, this whole 6 strikes deal, that yes, it will work, but it'll also backfire. I mean, heck, there are people right now, as of maybe a few hours ago, that from what I could probably understand, and from what I've seen, are probably downloading last night's TNA Impact Wrestling Slammiversary pay-per-view. And do you not think they realize, I said, they're taking a chance on this? Of course they do, but they also realize by taking that chance that it's every time you do something like that, it's a big chance, but it's also the fact that they're looking at it like it's just Slammiversary. It's not a movie. It's not music. They can't say anything about it. I mean, heck, you even go to sites like Mediafire or 4Share, and you can still download a song or so there. And you know why? Because it's like they said, and it's some horse crap right there. But it's like they said. It's like I said. For so many that do it, there's five more that, for so many that get stopped, there's always going to be a few more, if not maybe so many that will continue. Because of the fact that, my personal opinion, when they set out to do this, they didn't understand the magnitude of what they're getting themselves into. Just because you're going to try to stop people from doing what is considered illegal and basically say, hey, look, we want you to go out and buy the film, or we want you to go out and see the film, or we want you to buy the CD, or legally buy and download it from places like iTunes. That, even though that's what they want, even though that's what this whole thing's about, do you not think to me, they just did not realize the magnitude of what they were getting into. That was the whole point. They did not realize the magnitude of what they were doing. Because they're not just, trying to figure out, okay, what's this and what's that? Who's doing this, who's doing that? No. What they're realizing, what they will realize, if not some already, is that no matter what they do, it's not going to stop. It will never stop. It's like I said, for those that you do, for so many that you stop, there are more that will continue. It's like yes, it's a good idea to basically send a message of, hey, we want you to buy it and support, the film, support the artist, support the actors, the studio that does this, blah, blah, blah. But it's another thing to say, it's like I said, it's one thing. It's one thing to say that and send the message of that to everyone. But it's another to realize how many you're going after. And again, for those that you're going after, there are going to be others that will continue. Hold on for a second. Like I said, for so many that they stop, there's going to be many that will continue. And it's like, let's say it's kind of like a resistance. It's like a resistance. It's like, for so many, like, think about a show. Think about a show with resistant fighters. Like I said, for so many that get stopped, more will watch. Like I said, think of your favorite show that involves a resistant group. How many times in a show, maybe even in a comic if you will, how many times in a show, or even let's say a comic book, we have one of the lead characters basically say to the villain, for so many of us that you take down, more will rise. How many times have you heard that from, let's say, a resistance group in a show or in a comic? A line similar to that, like, for so many that you, the antagonist, the villain, knock down, more will rise. You know, how many times has that happened? How many times have you heard that? A lot, right? And that's basically what this whole thing is. It's like for so many, and you know, see, and that's the flaw in an idea like this. It's good. It's good on paper. It's good. You sign that little act, you sign and make that act legal. Fine. It sounds good on paper, but guess what? In the end, it doesn't. But guess what? In the end. But again, it's the end result that really matters. You see, for so many that they try to go after and try to say, hey, look, you know, you guys need to pay for what you're doing. You need to support this, which is, like I say, a good idea. For so many that they go after, more will continue. And that's the biggest flaw. Like I said, it sounds good on paper, but the end result, but the physical work, the in-your-face results and all that, that's the biggest flaw. That's going to end up being the biggest flaw because, like I say, on paper it sounds good. When it's, like I say, on paper it sounds good. But when it's all set and ready to go and it's all legalized, it's the action that speaks louder than the words. And sometimes the action will be the one that will determine whether or not the plan was a good idea or it was generally flawed. Hold on for a second. Like I said, it's generally flawed, and see that's the thing too. Again, sounds good on paper, but it's the action that would determine if it was a good idea to do. It was a flawed idea, because if it's good, then you'll see great results. But if it's flawed, then you'll see the results you don't want to see. And to me, that's exactly what's going on with this whole Copyright Act 6 strikes deal. It sounds good on paper, but guess what? It's the action that's going to speak the loudest. And right now, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that realizes the action is not getting the result that everybody hopes for. Because like I said earlier, I'm sure all these cable companies that have agreed to do this, agreed to support this act, are probably saying to themselves, yeah, we agreed to support it, but how are we going to really stop it? You can't. Yes, you see less torrents sometimes popping up and everything, and that's fine. But again, it's all about whether or not the action, the result, will prove that the idea, the action that was taken was a good idea, or was a bad. Or it was a bad idea. See, that, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the end result of this. To me, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the end result of this entire situation. like I was saying, it's all going to depend on the action. You know, it's going to depend on whether the idea was good or not. Like I said, a lot of these companies that have agreed to do this pretty much all thinking the same thing. Yeah, we've agreed to do it. We've agreed to support it. But how are we going to stop essentially so many? Because they're pretty much agreeing to this. They pretty much know the same thing. But so many they help stop, more will rise. So, again, the action of this act has been signed into law. The result in the next year or so, within the next 7 months, 7 to 8 months, if you will determine whether or not it was a good idea or they need to go back and fix it because of the flaws that have been involved. And believe me, there are a lot of flaws. Because for so many that they stop, many will rise. Again, it's a good idea. It sounds like a good idea on paper, but it's the end result that would determine whether or not they'll continue it the way it is, or they have to come up with a different plan. Because it's like this article said, because of the fact that there's so many people like me and you watching, people like me and you guys watching, are basically, yeah, we got to keep our eyes out for any possible sign. Got to check our emails and our, the emails to our cable accounts and all that, or that are connected to our cable accounts. But basically, the article says, people like me and you guys watching, just the littlest download, we will know. Basically, with the littlest download, torrent load, or whatever, there is no way we could get spotted because of the fact that they are focusing on so many others out there. And that, to me, is the major flaw. You got so many that you don't even realize, oh, here's this, here's that. But we can't stop it. Hold on for a second. And I know for a fact there are many that have been against this whole six strikes deal that are saying to themselves, you know what? Are probably saying the same thing, or realizing the same thing. And if they've read this article that I'm talking about, they probably know what I'm saying. And they're hoping that the end result will show the flaws. And they're hoping that this act will become disevolved, will become entombed, devoided, and that they'll just have to accept things for what they are. You just have to accept things. The best idea for them, if they want to do an act like this, is focus primarily on those that try to torrent out and pirate out movies that have just come onto the big screen. Focus primarily on that, and slowly but surely the rest will follow. But right now, because they want to focus on all these other situations with this act, with this act, that it's just basically going to backfire in their face. And you know what? It's doing just that, in my opinion. But let's see if they prove me and all of you guys watching wrong. Will the Six Strikes Rule Act be a good thing in the next 7 to 8 months? Will it prove to be a good thing, or will it prove to be a flawed idea and I'll have to go back to the drawing board? Let me know what you guys think below. Comment if you like.